Damn it! It's always that jump attack. Death comes in many forms apparently, and I guess there's no such thing as a cooperative Smash game. Exploring had always been a favorite in this one, but man, why does it always lead to death? I need a weapon.
When the term hard video games rises up into a conversation, the Dark Souls franchise always comes to mind. I think we can all agree how influential this franchise is, sparking up a subgenre called Souls-like. The Souls games are brutally difficult, with their unforgiving areas, enemies that deal devastating amounts of damage, and bosses that at times can straight up feel unfair. But even with all of that, people absolutely adore these games. They have a genuine fan base, and one that really likes to bang their head against the table. Yeah, I really didn't understand the appeal of these games when I was a kid. Like, why the hell would you want to experience all of this bullshit? I just couldn't realize how somebody would enjoy a game when this happens every 3 minutes. I don't even think it was the fact that these games were hard. I have played difficult games beforehand, but just looking at the monotony and the bullshit that Dark Souls had really turned me off. But it all came down to summer of 2024 when I tried Bloodborne for the first time. Yeah, this might have been a mistake.
Yeah, I thought the game was pretty stupid.
I played the game for 6 hours and couldn't even get through the first boss. Wow, that was shameful. I really didn't like how the game did things, like why in the world were the checkpoints so far from each other? Why in the world did I need to farm vials every time I died? Matter of fact, why did I always die? But the funny thing is, I recognized a certain oomph the game had that kept me from closing it. I don't know what it was, but there was something that wasn't in any of the games I have ever played before. It took me half a year later to try the game again, except that this time, not only was I able to reach the first boss, but also able to beat the entire game. It was that time I understood the game better, and well, the best way to play is just to avoid every enemy. But I finally understood the appeal of these games, which, yeah, that was a big moment. Jump to the present day when I decided it's time for a new matchup.
I got beat up pretty bad.
Elden Ring is the next game I decided to try with my Bloodborne experience, and after playing other Souls-like games, I thought this is going to be a breeze. And well, I have a lot of things to say.
So yeah, what other better time to talk about a game I literally died in hundreds of times? Kinda sucks, I ran out of ammo with that last gun, so finding another weapon is essential.
Elden Ring is a Souls game that was released in 2022 to both the PS4 and PS5, the Xbox One and Series X, PC, and additionally the Switch 2 in 2026. Elden Ring was critically acclaimed, calling it one of the most refined games of this generation. It got 10 out of 10s across the board and won Game of the Year. This game was once in a lifetime experience. It was one of these games that changed gaming forever. Elden Ring has a lot of the DNA of other Souls games, so let's look at the core way these games are designed. The structure of these games is like if Zelda only had dungeons with a hub world allowing you to teleport from one another. While they definitely allow for exploration, their level design is more reminiscent of those of Metroidvanias rather than open worlds. In those levels, lots of enemies exist, and killing them gives you whatever the game's respective currency is. Dark Souls' souls, Bloodborne's blood echoes, and Elden Ring's runes, both used to buy things from merchants and most of all, level up. Dying, which happens a lot, makes you lose all of them, and to get them back, you have to reach the place you last died before losing them completely if you die again. Their combat is the big difference compared to just regular hack and slashes. Hack and slashes are designed to make you look as cool as possible. The attacks are stylish and sharp. It is always about you. You're always in control. The games aren't about overcoming your enemies, but rather controlling the most over-the-top moves possible. Animation canceling, teleporting all over the map, time controlling, blendering, yeah, they should bring this one back. It all comes down to making you the most badass possible. Souls games are the exact opposite. You're just a little bitch with a sword, and the game is definitely more about learning your enemies rather than whooping their ass. You are minuscule, you're like an ant. All you have is a little sword and a dodge roll, and the game is asking you to go beat gods. Plus, every one of your actions is irreversible. If you execute an attack, you are going to commit to that attack. You can't just dodge midway through the animation. Bosses are these walls you need to conquer. Each has unpredictable attacks and behavior that needs to be studied. You're not supposed to beat them on your first try, but rather learn each of their attacks to counter accordingly. But it is that feeling when you beat a boss, that satisfaction that you just destroyed a massive wall that keeps players always coming back.
Oh, so this is why I'm here.
Okay, so what does Elden Ring do to change what has already been established before? As I said, Elden Ring has the same DNA that past Souls games have, but how is it able to innovate what many people would say had been perfected? Elden Ring starts out with this long ass cutscene. I'm just gonna say it now, I never gave a damn about these games' story. There is a lot of lore to uncover here, but to me,
I see this as a sin.
To me, the story of this game is you are an emotionless box going up against big monsters and gods. And then you beat the gods. Anyway, after a quick tutorial, the game says remember Breath of the Wild, and then goes, Elden Ring has a true open world. Instead of having all connected Zelda dungeons together, Elden Ring is as if you would disconnect all those dungeons with a Breath of the Wild in the middle. And get comfortable when I say that, as Elden Ring takes a lot of its inspiration from Breath of the Wild. Speaking of which, how does Elden Ring transports the regular Souls level design to an open world?
It gives you a short speed.
So like Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring guides the player through points of interest. A large percentage of the game is spent traveling the world with your horse, but unlike other open world games that uses checklists as a way to keep you engaged, placing side quests and collectibles on the map, Elden Ring encourages you to explore by placing interesting places in your view. This is something Elden Ring does from the start. Right after opening that door, you can already see this bubonic castle or the giant Erdtree sparking in the distance. The game does that constantly every time you get into a new region. It gives you a top view for a lot of the interesting places you're going to explore. Not just that, but just exploring the world. The game isn't shy of giving you something to look forward to. Not to mention just how beautiful this world is. Every region in this game is filled to the brim with great views that really capture your imagination in a way I've never seen before. This is taking fantasy into a whole new level. I mean, just look at this. Every area just feels magical.
This can't be real. Right.
The game has this grand feeling to it. It has a sort of edge that is really hard to explain. Moments like seeing the dragon for the first time, or teleporting to the endgame areas and discovering how big the map is, those moments just give Elden Ring this big feeling. Alright, let's talk about the combat of the game. Over the course of 100 hours, I have been in the game twice. Once with this stupid ass axe, and the other time with the basic katana. With that said, yeah, I suck at this game. That's the thing. Other than Elden Ring, the only other Souls games that I've played was Bloodborne, and this will be relevant for later, but for now, Just know that my gameplay style is as shallow as smashing my hand on the table, considering that's literally what I did in some of those bosses. Okay, let's roll back a little bit. Elden Ring's combat system is so much more rigid and dense than previous games. There are so many weapons, spells, abilities, buffs, debuffs. Why did I only use the katana? This is probably my biggest gripe with the game. It never encouraged me to switch weapons. By itself, the combat system is great, just like other Souls games. But there is just such a big missed potential here. Over the course of the game, you are bound to find tons of weapons. 90% of them are going to be useless. It all comes down to the upgrading system, not just for the weapons, but within its entirety. Just like any other RPG, you can get your level points and then put them into your stats. Certain weapons then scale themselves based on these stats. Not only that, but you can use smithing stones to then upgrade your weapons. This makes switching builds so inconvenient, because no matter what weapon you're going to switch to, it won't be upgraded as much as your current weapon or might not scale on the same stats. Now, the game does combat these issues by letting you respec and by letting you buy the smithing stones, but guess what? It still is a nuisance to switch builds. How would I fix this?
By laying the down.
Okay, so here we have two options. Either do what Breath of the Wild does and introduce weapon durability, which could kind of work if you make finding weapons much easier, but I'll be honest, I don't think anybody wants that. Or ditch that scaling bullshit and just make a single upgradable strength stat and a unified upgrade system for the weapons. There is no reason why I need all of this nonsense just to change a damn weapon.
I wanted to start eating eggs, but now I need to change my whole sleeping schedule.
The game's approach to difficulty, I think, is the most interesting change the game brings to the table. Right at the start, the game puts you up against the Tree Sentinel, the first enemy you encounter outside of the tutorial. And guess what? You're not actually supposed to fight him. This is the interesting thing. So what Elden Ring does is put a big ass boss in front of you and tells you to go find something to get him out, rather than a wall that tests your skill. It could still be one if you wanted it to. And in my case, that's pretty much what always happened, but the option to go out and explore is always there. Now, this does bring a few problems into the mix. Having a way to overlevel so easily destroys some bosses that otherwise would be really challenging and fun. I mean, just look at this.
Next time, I'll be mashing the X button to win.
The biggest problem I have with the game is its balancing, because apparently these guys are not so good with numbers. First up, it feels like the item distribution in this game had been done with a single button. Not all weapons are good, and by that I mean some literally exist just to take space in your inventory. On the other side, some weapons are broken for no goddamn reason. The problem is, finding those weapons does not take a whole lot sometimes. I'm pretty sure when placing items, the developers just hit a randomized button once and gave it a go. You never know what you're gonna get in this game, either the most broken sword on the planet, or a staff you can't even use.
Alright, I found a chest! We can make this work.
The balancing issue does not stop there though. Oh no. Runes are the currency you get when defeating enemies, which are mostly used as XP to level up. The harder the enemies to kill, the more XP you'll get, which makes a lot of sense. On paper.
Too bad we're not on paper.
What the hell happened here? Yeah, the rune balancing in this game does not make any sense. Certain enemies would have incredible amounts of runes while being brain dead to kill, while others could whoop your ass 4 or 5 times and have less than half more runes. Take for example this guy, who is pretty much a boss in the game. He gives you 3,800 runes. Okay, pretty standard. And let's take this guy who can't even turn around, which gives you almost as much.
Why yes, I also hate logic!
Elden Ring is an incredible game, but it has some of these little issues in its design that are really hard to ignore. It all comes down to the bosses themselves, and Elden Ring gives you a variety. There are actually over 100 bosses in the game, not including variations. As I said, bosses in other Souls games are walls you need to conquer. You are never supposed to defeat them in your first try, but rather learn their moveset and act accordingly. At first glance, these bosses seem impossible, but it is the satisfaction of learning their moves and overcoming them. This satisfaction is what makes these games for some people, and what Elden Ring does is, well, with dedication, you can do anything, even skip an Elden Ring boss. It is easier than ever to cheese these boss fights, explore enough, and strengthen your build enough to a point where these bosses just bites the dust. This is the divide between the community of this game. If you overlevel yourself to a boss, you didn't really beat the boss. Which, hell, I mean, I get what they are saying. If you didn't actually take your time and learn each of the moves of the boss, you really didn't get the same experience as someone who did. With that said, not everybody wants to sit on their ass for 6 hours trying to defeat Godric. Some wants to just...
He's dead.
Now, not every boss is amazing. Some are clearly not fun to fight. The Godskin duo, for example, that boss stinked. Not only do you need to fight both of the Godskin bosses at the same time, you need to defeat them more than once. My favorite bosses are those I actually needed to struggle with. Malekath the Black Blade took me about 4 hours, same as Godfrey. I died so many times on my first playthrough, but man, beating these bosses was incredible. This feeling of the fact that I can do anything if I put enough time into it. Seriously, this is something that I have never gotten out of another video game. Elden Ring gets a 9.5 out of 10. Is this one of the most defining games of this generation? Yes. Is it one of the most influential games of all time? Close, but overall, sure. Is it a masterpiece? Yes. But even then, it has a few problems in its design that are very easily fixable. Yes, this is a game worth playing, even if you aren't into the Souls franchise.
Alright, there's only one final boss left. Well, it seems we've come to this. Oh, that was easy. Oh, alright. Now we're talking. Alright, so killing the bosses was the easy part of the run. All of my ammo is gone. Yeah, but now, all that's left, the only thing I gotta do